Welcome, seekers and visionaries, to Oracle Mountain Chats. Here on this sacred virtual peak, we gather a space for oracles to share their wisdom, their visions, and their craft. It all began with a calling I could not ignore. One day, within a vision, I held this conch shell in my hands, and as I blew its resonant note into the world, I felt its vibration ripple across unseen realms. It was a summons, a signal to fellow oracles scattered near and far. I saw that we were on a mountain, vast and towering, reaching into the heavens. At its base, the world buzzed with life, people moving, creating, searching. Yet at the summit, there was stillness, clarity, and a circle of light. There, oracles stood, their gaze focused both outward and inward. They spoke of the energies they felt, the shifts they saw, and the whispers of the unseen. They weren't above the world, they were its witnesses and its guides. From this vision, OracleFest was born, a celebration of connection, insight, and the timeless wisdom that flows through us all. The message was clear. It is time. Time to meet upon this sacred mountain, to share what we hear, feel, and see. Time to bring the wisdom of the divine to a world that is yearning for its guidance. Through OracleFest, we've created a movement of community, all yearning to empower their own inner oracle. And here in Oracle Mountain Chats, we bring that spirit into a more intimate space. This is where the oracles gather to reflect, exchange ideas, and to explore what wishes to come through in the moment. This mountain is more than stone and sky. It is a meeting place of the realms, a threshold between seen and unseen, known and unknown. Here we gather as oracles to share the visions Spirit whispers to us, to speak of the energy currents flowing through nature and humanity, and to help guide those who seek answers in a world that often feels lost. So grab a seat, breathe in the mountain air, and join us as we begin today's chat. Whether it's an energy reading, a conversation about our craft, our path, or simply sharing a perspective on the world below, this is where we wait for more oracles to join us on the mountain. What wisdom will the mountain bring us today? Let's find out together. Step into this sacred space where the wisdom of the ages converges with the questions of the present. All right. Well, welcome back to Oracle Mountain, this figurative mountaintop that we sit and hang out at. And like clockwork, we always start the call before the call actually starts. And so I just stopped our lovely guest, Krista Mitchell, who's joining us here today, to say, oh my gosh, I actually think everyone else needs to hear what you're about to say. And so we have, beautiful Krista Mitchell here today, who has been a crystal teacher, I will say also long since before it was like known and super popular and cool to have crystals in everyone's home. You were like fighting the good fight in the big city, trying to show people, the power of crystals and what, how we can grow through our understanding of crystals. So I know there's going to be a lot of moments where we're trying to translate that which can, almost barely be translated into words. But you are an author and a teacher. You teach people how to work very deeply with and alongside crystals. So what you just described to me of, you connect with crystal consciousness and you can teach that access point for people. That is really beautiful to me. So what did I miss? And is there anything else you can kind of describe about what you do?
No, I think it'll all sort of fall out as we talk.
Good. Beautiful. Easy. All falling out, coming together as a puzzle.
It'll just unravel its own self.
Yes, exactly. And we had the beautiful fortune also of knowing each other in life, which is so rare because all these Oracle Fest speakers, I'm actually at a distance from most of them. I'm at a distance from you at the moment, but we used to, for a short time, live right next to each other.
Next door.
Our dogs are friends.
Yes.
So it's just a pleasure to see you in general again, Krista. So I just wanted to
Oh,
say
you
that
too.
personally. Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
And I will
yeah.
come visit you as soon as I've got a vehicle and I'm on the road again.
Excellent.
I'll come back. Yeah. Beautiful. So let me know. I'm gonna kind of trace us back because we were just talking about this is very typical of Oracle Mountain style and oracles in general. We were just talking about the land below, what we're seeing, what trends we're seeing, because we were talking about 2025 because we're recording this January 2025, and I feel like it's going to be a pretty monumental year, especially for those who are excited by change. And for those who are not so big on it or who are easily overwhelmed by change, it might feel like a big undertaking type of year, like a lot of completion and a lot of new beginnings. And so if there's like a lot of new beginnings, then how are people going to handle those things if they're not so comfortable with change, you know? So
Yeah,
I look at
yeah,
this year
yeah.
and I go, I'm so excited. And other people might look at it like, well, this could be a lot. And we're kind of talking about how people are like really needing, in a sense, we almost feel this like I hear it from people. They're wanting to almost commit to a modality or really dive deeper into or really focus their energies rather than being sort of at the like buffet, the spiritual buffet. You know, we're going for like a fixed price now.
A
So
prefix, yes.
yeah, prefix. Exactly. So let me know. You said you were also hearing a message or gathering a message from a crystal about some of this.
Yeah, yeah. So I was talking. So this is one of my Lemurian seeds,
Mm.
and his name is Beast. That's what he told me his name is, and he's really special because if you look at him, you can see he's self-healed. So he's
Wow.
experienced trauma and damage, which, according to his consciousness, occurred during the Great Cataclysm, the Great Flood. But then crystals, he's healed himself, and crystals have begun to grow over those. So, and I channel a lot of because crystals have their own spirit, they have their own consciousness. I'm just going to go here.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is good. All right. They have their own. They have their own spirit. They have their own consciousness. You know how some people experience like their personalities, but then they also are encoded with light and carry light. And light ultimately is information. You know, it's energy and information that is moving. And they also have memory, and they can open up channels of communication to higher divine beings who are in resonance with the energy frequency of crystals, because crystal frequencies are stable. So anyway, so I was channeling a message through Beast the other day, and channeling some of the energy and consciousness that will come through this crystal as well is dragon, and the higher dragon consciousness, and what I would call the more pure imprint, rather than what's been, presented as malevolent, on this planet, kind of like how we make predators always bad, like the wolf
Yeah.
is the bad guy and so on,
Poor
in
wolf.
nature. Of course, we are great, but
Yeah.
anyway, being the ultimate predator. But anyway,
Yeah.
but yeah, so I was channeling this message the other day from my Astari community, who are, my magical ones who do the magical training and the Astaria chrysalis work that I do with the crystals, which is what they named it. And talking about 2025 and the message of 2025. And so I when I start tuning in, my eyes close. So that,
Okay.
but talking about how, as I said, the word for me is pivotal. And so that goes in alignment with what you were saying about this is a year of change. And what is how it's going to go for people. And again, this is the consciousness that I channeled through, and it's already starting to channel now. They're like, great, we've got people who are listening. Wonderful. Let's all come in. Because of course there's also a collective
Yeah.
crystalline consciousness. But but that it's so going to depend on our alignment
Mhm.
and where our focus is, where our mental, physical, emotional, spiritual, energetic focus is. And adaptability
Yes.
is a very big word for this year. Adapt to thrive. Thriving is also a very big word, but it's choice. And part of and it's never fear mongering through them ever. It's always the highest, it's so clean what comes through them. But a bit of the alarm that is sounding is how focused and centered people are on the negative
Mhm.
and the uncertainty and the fear and the anxiety and hostilities are becoming increasingly polarized. There's increased polarization in general. I feel like. Do you feel like you see that as well in so
Yeah.
many ways?
Yeah,
Um,
and in the like spiritual community, what I'm starting to notice it is actually like what I'm seeing it as anyway from my perspective is where there's like a beginner's mind focus where you're like I'm on the cycle of change and we like the fact that it keeps going and going. And then there's like
mhm.
that resistance to that feeling of I've got this, I've figured this all out. I'm a healer, I know what I'm doing, right? That almost limitation or the I don't know
Yes.
what I'm doing. I'll never be able to be in healing work because I don't know where to even start and I don't know what to pick and what's my thing. So almost that vague
Mm.
unknowns of
Hmm.
is there more healing for you or is there a direction actually specifically for you? All those unknowns and people getting caught in the I'm going to stay over here and the not knowing and the panicking about the not knowing
Yeah,
versus the
yeah,
like delightful unfolding. I'm on the roller coaster no matter where it's leading people. That's like a lot
yeah,
of the vision I'm feeling too is like readiness for change, like you say, if
yeah.
there's so much of it.
And I think so much of that comes down to the term I use is sovereignty.
Mm-hmm.
But another term that you'll hear a lot of people use is agency. And I feel like the people who have cultivated that inner sovereignty, that inner soul, connection, the deeper listening and surrender. Um, we've got the thrill riders, of course, but I feel overall they're the ones who are more, I think, willing
Yeah.
to adapt or change. I the way that I could term for my personal self, just honestly, coming into 2025, the words mindful trepidation or mindful caution. I'm really keeping my eyes open. I'm staying very in tune. I keep dropping into the listening because change is inevitable.
Mm-hmm.
So so much of it is about what we're centering on, how we're centering and finding that for ourselves. So it's almost like you could say really split timelines. There are people who are going to head down a path that's going to be very challenging, painful, that's going to involve a lot of loss,
Mm-hmm.
I think, tension, friction. And then there are people who, and I feel this takes courage no matter what.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really important to point out. It takes courage. Courage is a choice. But there are people who are going to navigate this year in a way that's going to work out very beneficially for them. But what's also interesting about this year, and as you said, it's because we've got a 9 year, so we've got those cycles, beginnings and endings. We're at the same time that I feel, releasing a lot of things, either by choice or not.
Yeah.
Um, at the same time, we're also laying a very again, that word pivotal comes through, or really important foundation
Mm-hmm.
for how we move forward that I think impacts everything, just even in terms of how we choose to be and who we choose that we are.
Yes.
um
Yeah.
so yeah, that was the message that was coming through, and what keeps coming back to me through the crystallines, and through this consciousness is it's the more that we center in spirit and that deep listening and open ourselves to those deeper places, and cultivate that inner trust, that inner sovereignty, the more we're going to find the certainty that we're seeking, and the more we're going to be guided with greater ease, which I always love, greater
Yeah,
ease
we
and
love that.
flow
Yeah.
along that aligned path. Isn't that lovely to know? Oh my gosh, some
Yeah.
things can be easy. Of course, you've got things are simple, not always easy. Things are easy, not always simple.
Yeah.
So it's a practice, but yeah, that's what I very much see for this year. And certainly that can stir up a little fear because we naturally form attachments, and it's a human thing to fear the unknown. But for me, my immediate response is I just keep dropping in.
Yeah.
As long as I keep dropping in, as long as I keep surrendering, as long as I keep listening with discernment, which is another, I think, power word,
Yeah, me too.
to what
Discernment and
feels,
devotion.
yeah,
Those are my power
yes,
words for this year.
yes,
Discernment and
yes,
devotion.
discernment, devotion, resonance.
Hmm.
The more that I trust and have faith that I'm going to be guided in a way that will bring me joy.
Hmm.
And as a friend of mine says, a rising tide lifts all boats.
Hmm.
So it positions us. And another message, thank you for the reminder, another message that had come through, which I thought was so potent and I thought was so powerful and is going to be a guiding light for a lot of my work this year, is the crystals are saying people have stopped dreaming.
Yes.
And
Yes.
not just in terms of dreaming at night,
Hmm.
in our minds, et cetera, but people have stopped dreaming into their lives and dreaming their lives, dreaming their potential, pursuing their dreams. We've been pulled into a lot of funnels of distraction. And it reminds me of that famous Shakespearean quote, "We live for our dream."
Hmm.
And so what they've been saying is right now, at this time right now, as I speak, a lot of light workers are going through a period where they've needed rest. And they've really kind of needed to sort of check out, unplug, et cetera, et cetera. But that's then positioning them back into the dreaming of their lives, which then can help support them in bringing more of the collective back into the dreaming. And
Hmm.
it's, of course, never about spiritual bypassing, because as you know, when you walk the path for real, the Odyssey will happen, the what is it, the Cyclops, and
Yeah.
whatever else, they'll find you. That's the archetypal structure of life, the journey that is life.
Yep.
So don't worry, it will find you, and it's a matter of course, facing these things. But yeah, that's it. It's stepping back into the dreaming, which I thought was also very beautiful. So I see that as a dreaming year. This is a dreaming year, and becoming much clearer on our truth.
Yeah.
And again, that's what we find within. And
It's
that's where the crystals always pull us first.
and to pull us also to this collective truth, to that higher, cleaner message, I think also makes a lot of sense because, like you say, that the crystalline structure is very stable. And so it makes sense that that would be a very
Mm.
clear, like, yeah, a clear communication. It's
Mhm.
personally, I'm very much resonating with what you're saying. I'm nodding. You'll see because I know your eyes are closed as you channel. You'll see on the video. I'm going, and
I keep having to check every so often that I'm still in frame.
yeah,
Yeah.
that's a funny side effect,
You'll
isn't
tell
it?
me.
Yeah, I think
Kristen, we
my
can't see you.
the voice from beyond. You've just left the ether. You're just off to the side. Your computer chair has wheeled off.
She'll be
My
back.
version of that is, yeah, when I try to play the drum and then the Zoom just is like, hey, that's too
Ah.
much. And so if I don't have my proper settings on, that's always, I'm like, why didn't you guys tell me you couldn't hear my drum? I've been feeling a lot of these same messages.
Mm.
Something that I kept feeling for this year was for myself was deep roots, high vision, like this feeling that I'm always
Oh, love that.
coming back to who I am, my own tree roots, wherever forest I'm in, wherever I am in the world, but keeping that
Whatever
high.
galactic forest.
Yes. I've been to a couple galactic forests, maybe once or twice. Exactly. Yeah, in this realm or beyond. And that is because I also had this sense of man, isn't it tough when things fall away, when stuff grows? But that's always
Mm.
the process of life, right? And so I think that was
Mhm.
part of what you were touching on there that really resonated with me, where it sort of I think the more you do on a spiritual path, the more you realize so much of it is okay, what am I letting go of this time and what am I letting go of now?
Oh gosh, yeah.
Right?
Oh, surrender,
Right.
surrender.
Surrender
I'm
always. I'm
surrendering.
trying. That's not the point. Yeah, and so I was thinking of that at the beginning of this year, probably just because I was tuning into what the year would look like. And I had a little bit of this sad feeling of, oh, but some of the things I have in life right now, I really like. I
Hmm.
wanted
Hmm.
that stuff and there could totally some of it can stay and some of it can go, but we
Yes.
always are needing to trust in what is highest and best for ourselves being highest and best for the collective. And that's like the whole message of OracleFest, is that everyone would come in and do what they need to do to help empower their own inner oracle. So they're going to see your
Mm.
chat, they're going to see chats from all the other OracleFest speakers and see what resonates with them, and it hopefully helps tune them closer to what that personal authentic truth would be, because I think the best we could do also to support people right now is like
Absolutely.
beam our own authentic self out to the world, shine brighter, and see how many more people are like, oh, hey, that's a piece of what I'm here to do too. Or,
Mm. Hmm. Hmm. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, absolutely.
yeah, it
And I
does
feel
feel,
like,
go ahead.
yeah, no, I was going to say, I feel like those are the people it will draw, especially when there's such an alignment with that message, that's showing up, for you and for the speakers and whatever. It's that good old, law, like attracts like. It's going to
Yeah.
draw in the people who are they're seeking that peace, whether they know it or not, because it's not always conscious, but
Yes.
our soul will guide us. Our
Yeah.
soul will guide us. Yeah,
It's
of
like it
that I'm sure.
remembers, like someone's going to hear you speak and go, oh, yeah, 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 that is how it works. Wait, how did I know that? you know?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Because so
Yeah.
much of it isn't learning, it's remembering.
Totally, totally. Well,
Yeah.
when you speak to, I'm loving all the interconnectedness of this, because when you speak about these also Lemurian, star seed, that there's these other galactic, energetic connections with all this. I resonate with that. My early on experience of understanding crystals and how it's much more than a beautiful, pretty rock was that I was told if I were in light form, I would be similar to like a rose quartz, which makes a lot of sense to me.
Mm.
And so
Hmm.
then I would become more familiar with this like rose light family up in the, stars. And I would think, well, how is it that I would feel so at home in that idea compared to if I just planted myself around blue light for whatever reason, right? That
Mm.
there's some sort of
Hmm.
like super personal connection, or a heart based, like a thread from my heart to that place, wherever that is.
Yes.
And it was so
It's in
bizarre.
your DNA.
And it was so way before I was awake to any of this stuff, but that whatever the dogs are agreeing in the background here. You probably can't hear them. Can you hear them?
I heard a little something.
I'm just gonna tell them. Okay. I think they're just barking for attention. So we've got them by my side now, which is great.
Sometimes they
Um,
get excited too by the energy when the frequency starts rising.
yes, I was getting really excited. So to be fair, they're just like, what's happening? Kate's all lit up now, talking about all this beautiful change. Um, yeah, that was one of the first times early on that I even realized there was so much more to crystals. And then
Mm.
you think of how far, how much more than I've learned. I still feel like I'm at the basics. Do you have that sense as well when you're doing your work, that you're at almost like the beginnings of what could be known? Like, do you have that sense?
Oh gosh, we literally have a quote from more than one of our Astari fellows, our Astari students, where they say we feel that we are pioneering how we're going to be working with crystals, in the future, at least in terms of the spiritual work, that we're pioneering something new. And, for my part, I have been, I've been where I got my first crystals, I think when I was 13. And which was 35 years ago, because I'm very happy to be 48. I've survived this
Woohoo!
long. That is worth celebrating.
Yes.
But I've been working with them professionally full time for 20 years, and I am always learning. I am learning something new all the time. They are downloading something new for me all the time. They are teaching me something new. They are revealing something. So I feel like um, I'm perennially open to their mystery
Yeah.
and their wonder, and a student, really, or vessel, if you were. And I see my role really quite less as teacher now. It really is honestly less as teacher, and it's more someone who's just showing people the way and helping them open the gateways and step through. Because once I've done that, my job is essentially done. The miracle, the magic, the healing, the becoming, the revelation, whatever it is, that happens between them and the
Mhm.
crystal, and whatever is being activated, called in, etc., on that 5D plane, that 5D realm or density, dimension, whatever words you want to use, and above. And it's very interesting with crystals, because just even when we look at matter, but also light, higher dimensional energy, and so on, it's so crystalline in its structure. This is what they've been teaching me, just even about sacred geometry and those forms that are they're numbers in space, but their structure ultimately is crystalline. And we see that even in the 3D, subatomically, in terms of crystalline structure. But we've got crystals in our body. We have microscopic magnetite crystals right in front of our pineal gland.
Mhm.
And it's interesting because the pyramids are ultimately in the shape of the magnetite crystal.
Mm.
There's a very real possibility that there's magnetite in the metal crystal that's at the center of our Earth.
Mm.
And then you just even look out in space, there's crystals everywhere in space.
Yes.
Even when a sun cools and finally hardens, it becomes a diamond.
Mm.
So there is a multi-dimensional connection
Mm.
between, pretty much everything when we start working with them and connecting with them consciously, rather than simply receiving their energy, which was the basis for my work for a long time,
Right.
and how I
Because
was
that's how it
working
would
with
be
the
taught.
sword.
It would be
Yeah,
like
which,
just hold in and take in the crystal's energy. It's giving to you,
sure,
and you just take that. That's sort of like the
sure.
the, the base level of
the
how
the
it's
beginning the
right.
beginning it's like you go into water and you get wet. There's
Right.
something very different when you start relating to water, however, as its own sacred entity,
Hmm.
with its own memory, with its own consciousness. Same thing with trees. I mean, just even as a basic example, you can eat food and shovel it in and you've given your body fuel, but you
Hmm.
really haven't experienced anything.
Right.
When you sit and savor that food, there's a whole new level of depth and richness and wealth that opens up into your life. So,
Mm.
that's really where I feel like I've gone on a tangent somehow, but that's really where, the work started leading me. Yes. So coming back to what you had said, I'm learning all the time,
Mm.
all the time. Yeah, all the time. And not just about them, but what they have encoded, what exists even on this earth right now, but in a higher dimensional frequency that until you start tuning into it, you can't see it.
Hmm.
You can't connect with it. So it's really, we are in an absolutely wonderful creation. And I feel like, the opening to our oracle ability, and I feel like you might agree with me here, it's so much more than knowing about the future, isn't it?
Hmm.
It's really, that's again, I think, just sort of the beginning understanding of what's possible.
I agree. Funny enough, I met someone yesterday who said, "What do you do?" My favorite question to answer. Oh, I'm a shamanic oracle, sort of like a psychic and earthy. And anyways, I just try to move on because I knew they weren't judgmental. But of course, we have our own stories on, oh my gosh, how much do we actually share in this particular moment,
Oh,
you know?
absolutely.
Yeah,
Uh-huh. Uh-huh.
and it really made me chuckle because I thought, well, what am I doing hiding? This person isn't judgmental of it. They just don't have any point of reference. So their reference would be like, so you read palms and stuff? Literally the next question
Mm-hmm.
that came
Mm-hmm.
through.
Oh, really?
And I went, well, no. And I said, but I do other stuff. And of course, carry on in conversation. A couple minutes later, I'm being told like how they deeply cared for someone in their life who they had just worked with, and they had had a severe injury, and so then they did what they could to sort of help out. And I go, well, that's
Mm-hmm.
funny because they know that I do healing work, so then they come and tell me some story that meant a lot to them, and that we are communicating in some
Mm.
way without needing the translations, and that it's like,
Yes.
our titles are not actually as important as it is that we have an energy and a frequency of understanding, or a like of depth. And I was thinking also about when you were saying, like, we have all these choices, and sometimes our mind is uncomfortable in that unknown, but then the more you do on this path, that lessens it just does it that kind
Mm-hmm.
of discomfort
Mm-hmm.
grows into a familiarity that we become maybe friends with at some point. And
Mm-hmm.
I think, what a joke, because if we think how many options there are, and how much, like, every person who comes into this knowledge of for more years than myself always says, I'm learning much, much more now. And actually, I
Yes.
know I'm never going to get to the end of that. That is what the healing and spiritual journey is. It's delicious in that it's
Mm.
ever flowing and ever giving to you, because it has so much more to give, because there's never an end to it. And so
Mm-mm.
until we cross that threshold of I'm willing to continually be on this journey, I don't think it's even possible for us to get accurate divination. Because if we're not ready
Ah,
for any
interesting.
answer, right? If we're not actually prepared to like neutralize what that answer is coming for us, it's difficult for us to even, so that there has to be this like totally personal healing element to any future telling, if that is what we're doing as oracles.
And healing changes the future.
Yes, it
You know,
does.
I absolutely, I do believe that we come in here having made certain choices about things that we want to experience in this lifetime. I believe in multiple lifetimes and so on. But I also, and I have experienced this, it sometimes dramatically and sometimes subtly, when the timeline shifts and
Mhm.
changes. And what I always see when I go into the Akashic records, journeying with the crystals, what I always see is it's almost like dominoes. It's kind of the best way to describe it. And if
Yeah.
you change one domino, they start shifting in another direction.
Mhm.
Um,
I see it
so
like train
yeah, and
tracks too, when they so it's like there's
yes,
like
yes,
five tracks going, and every now and then I go "Woo,"
yep,
and I go into that
yep.
real fast track, and I go, this is fun, right? But then something comes up
Mhm.
where we come up against those fears, and we go, ooh, it's too good. Let's just get off track a little bit, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. That old paradigm
Yeah,
reasserts
yeah,
itself, right?
yeah,
Those old neural pathways. Um,
exactly. We're only
but
human.
the crystals always talk about how we're sovereign creators. And
Mhm.
so in any given moment, we are creating our future. And so they talk largely about, assessing the energy and gazing down the pathways, but then also choosing to navigate from our soul in terms of what we are creating for ourselves, and so it's interesting because they're so old. They're ancient, they're thousands of years old. They're likely, and I say this to people every so often because they never think about it. They're in the stores buying the crystals. I'm like, this crystal is probably going to outlive you by a few thousand years. So you're a moment in its time when it's in your keeping.
Mhm.
Um, but because they have that very different relationship to time and to creation, it's really interesting how they put that across. And you can start to feel the difference, don't you, when you're anxious about the future, and so you want to hear about how it's going to play out versus how is it going to play out on this timeline now, and what happens if I do this
Mhm.
in the present. It's empowering. it puts you more in the driver's seat. And I think that's, again, part of that sovereignty and that centering we've been talking about. And you need to find that within.
Yeah. And remembering that power of choice, because that hopelessness and feeling like we don't have any say in the matter, it does wear thin, right? It sounds
Yeah.
nice, it sounds saintly, even depending on what circles you're in, to just say, oh, I don't have any. I'll jokingly say, oh, it doesn't feel like I have much choice in the matter. But that's just because of my certainty on my soul path, saying, well, what
Hmm.
comes next is whatever I'm told that comes next, and I trust that. It's that
Yeah.
it feels as though I know I'm making this choice, right? I'll never actually get down to the bottom of it and say, I had no choice here. I've made all these choices in order
Mm.
to create now this connection that feels like I barely have a choice because I'm trusting in it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. And
Yeah.
I can see, there's room for different beliefs and different philosophies on that, absolutely. But I feel like, well, again, it's just what I keep receiving now anyway, is we are more deeply empowered and more powerful in terms of how we're, and they always use the co-creating our reality, because of course
Yes.
we are
Yes.
forces of creation and so on. But we have more power and empowerment than most of us realize.
Absolutely. That's so, so true. And
Hmm.
it's a relationship. So for all this feeling of I'm
Hmm.
alone or no one gets or I'm isolated in this spiritual journey, it is co-creating with spirit and with yourself, with your soul
Hmm.
self, your higher selves, with crystal consciousness, if that's how you're called, right? Like it's
Yeah,
it's a relationship much more so than I think we've maybe given it credit in the past.
yeah. And I have to tell you honestly, coming into that realization, and I came into that realization on my path, and it's okay for that to be a process. But deeply coming deeply into an embodied state of that realization and knowing that I am not alone, I think is one of the most deeply comforting things I have ever experienced, certainly in this lifetime. To
Mhm.
me, that was absolutely life changing to know, no matter what I'm facing, what I'm experiencing, there's something that surrounds and holds that will even carry me, that I can connect to, that's there to 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 be my ally on that spirit level. It um, got me through some of the hardest times in my life, especially in recent years. So to me, that I could definitely call that a game changer.
Yeah. And it's the felt experience is the game changer, right? Because to know the
Hmm.
thought is not the same as really believing,
No,
feeling it.
no,
And
it's
that's
got
what
to
I've
be in your
experienced.
body.
Yeah, right. Like I've mentally been like, yeah, this makes sense. And then suddenly that experience, that life moment will happen where it clicks in as, oh, I really, really actually feel and believe that that is true now. And it's interesting the magic that just sort of comes together to
Mm,
allow those moments.
mm,
And it's my hope that more and more and more as we go throughout this year, especially, that there are like people who have these experience moments that drop it in so that they can trust that and they can walk forward with a bit more comfort because it's so uncomfortable. When you're talking about alignment, it always strikes me as funny because like people will say, oh, it's really like difficult. Healing is difficult, or it's difficult to get into alignment. And I'm like, oh, well, healing and alignment, those are actually really enjoyable experiences in states.
mm,
Healing feels actually like healing, like it's improving something or like growing more into who you are. And then alignment is easy. It feels smooth. It feels like that, the fast lane in my mind. Maybe because I like a certain amount of energy, but might be a peaceful, leisurely drive to some, right? But it's the perfect pacing for you where there's not a lot of extra resistance, that whatever that easeful, smooth path is. But the shift of gears to get into that alignment,
mm.
disrupts the current comfort level. So it's not that the thing in the destination is uncomfortable. It's
Oh, that's
you currently
interesting.
are is uncomfortable, but
That's
it's
interesting.
right. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just been worrying in my mind recently. It's like, how do I explain this succinctly?
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
it
No,
was,
that's interesting. That's an interesting perspective.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's a realization that actually a lot of the story we have around
The
healing.
story.
Yeah, yeah, it feels.
Mm,
I've definitely been tuning in a lot more to the dramas of, the soap operas in our minds recently. These stories, because yeah, it does feel like a bit of a story to think healing's tough and healing's hard, because no one else around you is taking it as seriously as you are, so then it must feel hard or difficult. It actually just feels really difficult to be isolated from people. That feels difficult, but
mm.
connecting to your spirit does not feel difficult. That feels really like what we're missing. Like it feels like it fulfills an aspect of ourselves that was feeling isolated, was feeling unheard, or what have you.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know where that leads anyone, but just been musing.
Well, I feel like that connection is what we're missing. I think what makes it hard, the very first thing that comes in is fear.
Yeah.
Fear, but we've been conditioned. We've been so conditioned, and that's a process of dismantling. And especially when you get into layers of spiritual healing, there can be contracts, there can be karma, there can be other things that are factoring in there. And so sometimes what again, that expression of it's simple, but it's not easy.
Yeah.
It is a process. And I mean, I certainly have felt like when you're in that healing crux, I guess I'll say, of having to release, or personality die off and letting those stories die off and everything else, it is uncomfortable.
Yep.
It is uncomfortable. Sometimes it can even be physically uncomfortable, and so that can feel like a challenge. But that's also because I think we've tried to insulate ourselves so much from any kind of discomfort. Whereas there was a measure of discomfort that was a natural part of life, of the growth process. And so I think there's fear and resistance around that as well.
I love that you said the personality die off process. That's exactly what it feels
Mm,
like.
yeah.
I've never heard it
Well, I'm
described that
not
way.
her anymore. I've got a couple graves out in my backyard already.
Yeah, all the
Little
we used to
stones.
be. Yeah, yeah.
I still love them.
Of course. Oh, we have to look fondly on these past selves of ourselves. They're all
Yeah,
ourselves, right? And
yeah,
yeah, but personality die off because it can feel like missing or losing aspects of, but really we're regaining the truthful, we're making space for the truthful expression to come
yes,
through. And that's always, yeah.
yeah.
But you only know that once you get there, I
No,
often say
no.
that about intuition and divination things. It's like you only know once you
Mm,
know and not a moment sooner. So I try not to force
hmm.
decisions anymore because I think, well, it'll get decided when it's meant to be decided and not a moment sooner because I won't know until I know what the decision
Yeah, that
is.
pin locks in.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. You know that game Kerplunk, with all the sticks in it, and then there's marbles. Have you seen this? Where you try and pull out the sticks and all the marbles fall through?
No.
It's a
No,
silly
but
game.
that sounds like something from the 80s, and
I
therefore I
think
should know
I
this.
think you should. I think it's
I
odd that
think
I
I should know
know.
this
I think you
game.
should know
I
this
still
game.
I still have board games and stuff.
It's
I love all
important.
that old stuff.
I think it's important to keep wholesome things. Actually, talk about like what our world
Wholesome
needs
things. I
most.
love it.
Wholesome things, right? We need these like heartfelt,
Mm,
wholesome moments. I was just talking earlier today with Arlene, and we were talking about romance and the idea that love and romance are actually like it's a rebellious thing to even believe in beautiful, wholesome concepts
mm.
anymore, in contrast to the modern
Isn't that
narratives.
amazing? And
Yeah.
yet that's what I grew up, people of my generation grew up believing in.
Totally,
Yeah.
totally. I was on the in between, I think, right? Whereas like we had Disney movies, but then we grew up in a world of technology where everyone was like, actually, it's not that way, and here are the divorce rates, and here's how awful it is. And so
And he should have asked permission before kissing her first.
totally, totally. And so now we're all
Which I
very
don't
confused.
necessarily disagree with, but she was in a coma.
Poor Snow White. Or was that
Sleeping
Sleeping
Beauty.
Beauty? They
It
both
was a
were.
theme.
They
Yeah.
both were kind of asleep though, weren't they?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. Yeah.
She was just asleep from poison. She'd wake up eventually, maybe.
Yes. Yeah. She ate the wrong apple.
Yeah, yeah, went down the wrong way. Yeah. Speaking of that film, actually, I was just thinking about how interesting it is that Wizard of Oz has that like scary scene with all the trees, the orchard, and things. And Snow
Mm.
White also has a scary forest scene. Um,
Oh.
yeah, where there's like all these eyes in the forest, and she's like all scared about going, and then she ends up at the dwarves' home. There's like an
Ah.
initial kind of scary forest scene, and yeah, it's just interesting to me sometimes these common fear, and it's so sad.
Which again is in a way that's an analogy perhaps or an allegory for moving into the unknown.
Totally. Totally. I think that is definitely in Wizard of Oz. It's so, because it's like the temptation of staying in that as well, right? Like there's sort of that, yeah,
And having
it's,
the power to go to her heart's desire right from the beginning. But she had to
yes,
go through the whole journey
yes,
in order to realize that. Yeah.
absolutely.
Yeah,
Yeah.
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 Comes back to that old archetype.
That's it. And what a beautiful realization to have the power of choice. Like to really
Mm,
know that every single moment of every single day you choose what you do next and what gets believed or activated or approved by your own internal
yeah.
system. That is like such magic for our world right now.
I think so too. But the thing is, one of the things that I have learned on the path, and again that I've channeled through the stones, and this is part of the work that they're doing. This is part of the work, part of the reason why they called me into this higher consciousness level work with them and everything else, because it completely takes us out of our old reality paradigm.
Oh yeah.
And it brings us, it's rather than channeling a spirit, you're journeying in a meeting and speaking with the spirit, and you're going into the realms. And of course, every time you touch higher consciousness, it changes you, it influences
Mm-hmm.
your consciousness. But it's like when we're in our reality and we're trying to change it within the same construct,
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't work. We have to step outside of that construct in order to be able to find or create a new reality. And that's something they call the dreaming. What they lead us into is the dreaming, where we really begin to again connect with our soul's dream, our soul vision that can be completely different. And it's not about the mind figuring out how to get there.
Yes.
It's about activating that in our DNA, in our cells. And from there, it multidimensionally begins to ripple outward. But that
Mm-hmm.
center, always coming back to that center, is key to help allow that to happen.
Absolutely.
It's quite amazing how much change can happen in our reality and how easily our reality will form when we claim our truth and when we allow.
Yep. That
Yeah.
allowing, same with that surrender word that you kept. I mean,
Key
it is,
word. Yeah.
yeah, yeah, it's loosening that grip on whatever we thought that we are supposed to be holding on to. And I
Yes.
really know what you're saying too. In the shamanic concept or context, we sort of look at, you want to have one foot here and one foot in the non-ordinary, right? But you've got to
Mm.
have a foot in the non-ordinary and you've got to have a foot here in order for that to
Yes.
make sense, right? And so
Yes.
sometimes I will say I see people who are maybe 2 feet in the non-ordinary. They forget how good it is, how juicy it is to be alive as a human, and they resist the humanness, right? We can see
Yes.
that sort of expressed in a lot of different ways. And then other folks, the fear is
Mm.
here, and then stepping their other foot, they're like dipping their toe. They go, "Was that enough? No, dip
Yeah,
that
yeah,
whole
yeah. Did
foot
I make
in."
all that
Yeah.
up? I made all that up.
Oh, oh, the I made it up crew. Oh, I really do. It really, we're so creative. It's such a shame to like think that that was the
I know.
wrong
And I'm
thing.
like, is that what you would have made up if you were making it up? No,
No.
no.
Yeah.
We know when we're making things up. We know when we are making things up.
Yeah, just like we
Yeah.
know if we're lying, we know if we're lying to ourselves, right? Like we do. We have this
Mhm.
thing that just kind of itches at us. So yeah, you're so right.
Yeah.
And truth doesn't have that. Truth is like,
Yes. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. Oh, I feel like I want to talk to you for forever, and we don't have forever in this moment. And so I'm
No.
gonna naturally take the end of that breath and say, I think let's shift into this ending. Is there anything else that feels pertinent that you'd like to share? If it's in real worldy space, anything before then
Real
folks will see you at
worldy
OracleFest.
space. Real worldy space. No, I think no, I think we've spoken sufficiently about many wondrous things.
We've done a
And
wander.
as we say to the walrus, it's time to go and all that rot. But yeah, I think that just that final thing of the foot in the 3D and the foot in the 5D, and remembering that, again, if we believe in choice, we did choose to come here for a reason. And so often I see that we're really a bridge
Yes.
between realities and dimensions. And again, it's about what we are envisioning, creating, witnessing or experiencing on the 5D, and how we're the miracle that translates that into the 3D. And I feel, again, cultivating a greater awareness with that, because I have some moments where I'm like, seriously, yeah, Mars anywhere, I don't care, let's just go. I have those moments, but then I remember the earth is beautiful
So
and
beautiful.
a rare gem.
Yeah.
So yeah, that would be, I think, the final emphatic point is we're the bridge, we are the creators. Yeah.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
beautiful, beautiful
Mm-hmm.
bridges. Every one of
Mm-hmm.
us, all different
Mm-hmm.
bridges of the world.
Mm-hmm.
I love that. I love that idea.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
That's beautiful. Well, I'm blessed for being able to chat to you today, and Oracle Fest will be blessed to hear from you on the day as well. And I'm excited to see what crystals and what crystal consciousness comes through you
Oh,
on
yes.
that
They're
day.
very excited. They will be
Yeah,
there.
little
They will be
Mexican
there.
jumping bean energy. They're
Oh,
like, get us in
gosh.
there,
And they'll
coach.
all be communicating to the crystalline and everyone's bodies and whatever, but not in a creepy way.
Yes.
But it's about, it's about activation. It's about activating that memory. That's always
Yes.
listening and waiting.
Oh,
Mhm.
amazing. Oh, I'm just getting so
Mhm.
excited for everyone,
Mhm. Mhm.
let alone
Mhm.
myself to witness and absorb too, but I'm just thinking of everyone else. It's amazing.
Mhm. Mhm.
So thank you so much for being here,
Thank
Krista.
you.
And we really look
Mhm.
forward to having you at Oracle Fest. And I'll share this out with everyone so they can get to know you beforehand too.
Okay, cool. Thank you.
Awesome. Take care.